Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Extra Hours for another week. This is part of the Office Hours Global network. If you wanted to know more about what we're doing, officehours.global/join will get you all connected. We have assembled a group of people from around the world to have a little discussion. About a few things. We can take questions, of course, as well. So if you're in Makana, then please chat away in there and also ask questions. To start us off on the panel here, we have Guy Cochran up in Seattle, Washington. Hello, Guy.
Yeah, hey, looking forward to this evening's discussions. We had some homework. Hopefully all of you around the horn did your homework.
That's right. It's the first time we've had some homework, so we'll see what we come up with there. Alex Lindsay made all this thing happen 5 years ago and continues to chat along and comes up with things to talk about. Alex, how are you?
It's good to be here. I did get the homework. I did it. It was last minute, but if you had given it to me 3 days ago, I would have watched it exactly at the same time. Like sometime this afternoon, so it's not like I was like, wow, this is really last minute for me, and I was like, what are you talking about? Like, you would have just waited until this afternoon and watched it the same way you did now. So
well, it's funny, just yesterday as I was going for a walk, I got someone sent through, hey, can you just answer these few questions for a little survey thing post we're going to put on the a LinkedIn post. And I was like, if I don't do that right now, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to come back to it. And so what I did, got ChatGPT, I posted it in ChatGPT, and I said, these are the questions they're asking. Please ask them one at a time and take my responses and then give a complete response at the end. And so as I was walking, I talked to them. I talked to Chad, my wife and I call it Chad. We spoke to Chad. And so I just chatted to Chad for 15 minutes and then got this response while I was walking, and it was all done. And so it was an example of now it's done. The person was super happy. They're like, wow, you got an amazing response back to me so quickly. So, and sometimes you can take those last minute requests and do them straight away, but that was my point with that. Over in Raleigh, is that right? Raleigh, North Carolina, up in there somewhere. Yep, Muddy. How are you, Muddy?
I'm doing good. Yes, I'm here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and it is springtime here. As Alex, we were talking before the show, Alex is in California, but it's also getting hot here in the Southeast. So we're coming into the summer as you are coming out on the other side of the world. So good to be here tonight.
Yeah, nice to have you. It's good to do some little weather roundups when we first start the show. Now, Paul is either, I don't know whether you're not in Texas right now, are you? You'll be somewhere else. Paul Wallace.
Well, I hail from Austin, Texas. Actually, I live in Cedar Creek, outside of Austin, Texas, in Bastrop, which is where most of the Starlinks and the Boring Company and Tesla have decided to locate 6 miles from my house. But you might call me a snowbird, because I'm in Arkansas right now, where it's 4 degrees cooler. So I'm not the greatest snowbird, but it is. I'll take the 4 degrees.
It's like a lateral snowbird. It's like kind of going to go over here.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, and much closer to where I am now. I'm in Adelaide, or outside. I'm in a place called Mount Barker, up in the Adelaide Hills in South Australia. Closer to me, in outside of Sydney, a place called Camden, about 60 kilometres, I'd say, from Sydney. Is that about right, Ryan?
I'd say so. Yeah. Yeah,
about that. Very good. So you can say that you're from Sydney, but you're actually on a bit of a property and actually have land, which is unusual to be in Sydney, right? We don't have land in Sydney.
No, you don't have land in Sydney. We're quite blessed to be staying with some friends of ours at the moment. But yeah, we're out here in the middle of nowhere. We've got cows walking by, and sitting on Starlink and
what kind
streaming
of
to you.
cows?
black and brown cows.
Black and brown.
Yeah, nice.
They're meat cows, not dairy. So
Right. So
Beef.
Hereford, maybe Angus, maybe a mix of the two. I obviously grew up on a cow farm.
yeah. No, I unfortunately don't know the answer to that, but yeah, I love steak, so
Yeah.
meat is good.
That tastes good.
Do they eat their own? Do they eat their own beef?
They don't know. The wife is. It's a little bit much for her to see dinner walking by. So like she's not vegetarian, but it's a bit much to kind of go, oh well, there's Daisy and here's Daisy on our plate. So yeah.
It's like can you just wrap that up and put a nice sticker on it and like just make that look as store-bought as possible, please. That's the only way.
It can get pretty dark on a farm, though, because there was a point where the boys were a little thicker skinned than the girls, and there was one year where the 4-H, I think it was the pigs didn't make weight, and so they ended up coming back to us, and so then there was like, when you asked for bacon, the boys would sometimes ask for some Frankie. The girls did not think that was funny. We did.
Fair enough.
So good.
Ryan's
good.
like,
We've got little
wow,
farm stories in
this
already.
one's so dark.
Yeah. We've got some farm references in.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
Alex, Ryan is using Starlink, and
Let's see how it goes.
I've heard you. See how it goes.
Good luck. Yeah. I think the hard part is I had a Starlink. I still have one. I just don't have it active right now. And I just found that every 40 minutes it dropped for 20 seconds. Like it was just every 40 minutes it would just drop for 20 seconds as it was finding the other satellite. Now maybe as more satellites come out it'll get better, but it was one of those things that I used it all over the United States, and every time it was just like it'd be going along and then it would just dump out for an extended period of time, and I can't really have to use it as what I wanted to use it as. Can't really have it drop for more than no seconds. So it like
more than
unless,
0 seconds.
And so 0.001 seconds is about the most I can do. And so it just became kind of like, I think that I've grown to have a general distaste for it, mostly because I feel like we figured out, I've talked about this many times, but we figured out how to run plumbing, power, telephone to in most of the West, to every house in the whole country. And we've decided we can't do that with fiber. And so we're going to have this kind of schlocky solution that will never be as good as fiber. Like it'll never be that good. And it's not, and people say, well, you can't really run fiber that way. Well, we did with a lot less technology and a lot less money. We did it. We've already done it 3 times. So it's just a little frustrating.
Well, here we go. I'll keep the ping up for the duration of the show, and we'll see if we drop a ping.
That's perfect. So let us know. Let us know how it goes.
If we see a drop, then we'll see it here.
Yeah. That sounds great.
Look at that. So that's 111 is cloud. What is that?
Cloudflare?
Cloudflare. That's it. I was going to say CloudFront, but that's AWS. Cloudflare. That's all right. 40 seconds. That's all right. 40 milliseconds.
I mean, 40 seconds is not great, but 40 milliseconds is okay.
No, 40 milliseconds is all right. So I wonder how long ago it was that you tried that, Alex, because I had the same thing, and I think there's probably been another few thousand satellites thrown up since the last time you used it, perhaps.
Yeah. No, it's been a couple of years, and the last time I used it, it wasn't so much that it was dropping, it was just the bandwidth was much lower than I had started with, so it was more stable, but I just wasn't getting the kind of bandwidth that I was originally getting. So it was like 30 and 10 or something like that. And I was like, okay, like if I get business, I'm sure I can get faster. But I was like, I just want to go back to wired. I'm not going to, I'll wait for this to cook for another couple of years and we'll see how it goes. So
yeah, it's interesting because I'm very picky as well, but I've definitely found that normally I'd have fiber and like 4G bonded as a main setup, but I've been on this, as long as it's not raining or storming, it's completely fine. I've never actually seen any drops throughout day or night. And download, I'll get between 250 and upload about 1020. And it's pretty consistent. So it could also be just because it's less used down here. But saying that, then Starlink is actually one of our main for remote places now, because it's such a big country. Trying to get fiber everywhere is not easy.
Right.
There you go. That was that was my
But
point.
do they have
is
wired
that when you
telephone
look at,
everywhere?
look at this. Well,
Not necessarily, no.
No, okay.
No, so look at this. The lightest yellow is less. It's people per square kilometre, right? Less, and the lightest yellow, which is right in the middle here, less than 0.1 person per square kilometre in most of the country, like in the middle of the country, and so Starlink is incredible for that.
Oh, for that part of it. But Ryan, you're not in that yellow part. You're in an orange part, right?
I'm in an orange part, yes, but it's just, I mean, we even have
Still can't get
power
fibre there,
fluctuations
right?
here.
Right.
Oh, we could. It's going to cost a lot of money because there's just no infrastructure on the street even. And our driveway is a kilometre long to the street. So that's going to be not a fun exercise to get that done. But yeah, we've tried standard satellite. We've tried like even 4G. We barely get a bar. So Starlink's really the only option we have here.
I'll take them both, thanks. I'll take a cup of fibre and a cup of Starlink. That'll be great. All right. So we have some. Actually, first of all, before we get on to our homework, Ryan, I just wanted to ask you about NAB. We were talking about how we live in the same country, but we were actually in the same city in Vegas and still didn't get to see each other. What were your takeaways from NAB as you've had a little bit of time to consider it?
Maybe 2026. Is that when we're going to see each other then? Or is that?
That's what maybe then.
Maybe. Yeah. Look, it was a different year for me. So this year I went. I was supporting the Social U team who were on the ProPsych booth. So ProPsych do a bunch of green screen cycle walls. They brought Social U in to kind of give a live demo of a half decent key to kind of show off what they do. Because ProPsych are manufacturers, they don't do keying or anything. They just want to pump out green walls. So I was there as a, what's the word? Yeah. On the stand for a long time, so I was their demo artist, I guess, and whatever. Yeah, so I was on the stand for a majority of the week. I honestly only got out to wander the show floor only for a couple of hours throughout the whole week because I was just there, just talking to people. But it was also kind of cool because people would come by and actually talk to me on the stand rather than as you bump into them on the field as well. So that was really interesting. But yeah, for me, it was a lot more about the talking to people. I spent a lot of time at Blackmagic talking to engineers and PMs there. So that was great to do that. But yeah, talking to a lot of people, apart from you, Grant, and Alex, I missed you as well. But anyway, yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. Did go to the Sphere to watch the U2 concert one night. That was awesome. Have you been to the Sphere yet? Did you go there or?
I went. Tucker and I went along one night, but we saw the Postcards from Earth or whatever that was called show. But so, what did you think of the U2 show? Now, because it was a replay. It wasn't the actual. They weren't there on stage. Which was probably very similar to them being there on stage because the stage is so small, right? So forever,
exactly.
So far away.
It actually took me to the end of the concert to realize what we're actually watching. And it was literally just a camera sat in the concert filming them and the screen. Because I looked at the side of the screens and I could see like, oh, there's some moving lights that were there. So they basically just plonked the camera there, filmed this. Because I just assumed that it was put the stage in there, superimpose the graphics on top, but no, it was just literally filming the screen, filming the stage, and just played it back again. And like, I'm amazed that it took me to the end of this concert to realize what was actually happening here. And the quality just looked amazing. So whatever their, big dome camera that they use, they just plonked it at front of house or wherever it is and filmed the concert. It was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Would you go again?
And sound, obviously.
Was it worth it?
Oh, 100%. Like, and the sound, they have a demo in the foyer of like how they do their, you can just walk between sections and have different vocalists. Because apparently you can actually get a different language per seat You can be sitting somewhere and listening to English, and the person next to you can be listen to a different language. And I'm like, there's 160,000 odd speakers in there doing this whole phase array thing. I'm like, man, the science behind that is incredible. But yeah, the picture, it's the best LED that I've seen, and probably the best. It's not like a concert PA. It's not like just, you know, big hangs and you're just getting blasted by that. But it just sounded so crisp. Like it was a band. It wasn't like, they did do some post mixing and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I loved it. I'll definitely go back if I can.
It makes me wish I went to see that instead. It might have been a better choice. Anyway.
Next time.
Very nice. Yeah, that's right. All right. So it was, I believe it was Craig last week that asked about this video. Craig Kadoki asked about, he posted a question, what do you think of this video? And then
it's actually
I took
our
a bit
first
of a look
question
at
up
it.
here. If you'd like me to read it, it's resubmitted.
Oh, there you go.
All right, I'll read it.
Go
Craig
ahead,
Kadoki is asking, has anyone watched this video on the possible future of AI? A bit dystopian, but interesting. What do you think about the timeline? And he's got the link to the YouTube video.
Very good. I think most of us have watched it. Alex, you had your mouth poised.
Yeah, no, I think that I watched it, and what it really talks about, of course, is that AI will start to, you know, conspire with other AI and eventually take over everything, and eventually decide that the humans are in the way and just kill them off. And then it, you know, so then, or at least enslave them at best and kill them off at worst. But it's the, you know, the next, and this may all happen in the next 2 years. It's possible. Like, I'm not going to say that it's not possible. AI has been growing very quickly. I think that there are, you know, challenges in the process. And I think here are the problems with the timeline, in my opinion. I'm not saying that it'll never happen, but I would say that the challenge is that there's a lot of weird little things that you have to do in the world to keep things moving forward that I just don't think AI is going to be ready to do immediately. And it won't have very much time to figure it out. And I think it will know that, in the sense that to continue to do this, you need a lot of energy. And that energy is not infinitely scalable from what you have. You can't, you don't have all the apparatus to move oil, to move coal, to, you know, and if you want to build more servers to support your AI, you now need precious, you know, or you know, these rare earth minerals. I don't think AI is going to build. It's one thing to build a robot that you can push down or it can dance when it's programmed. It's another thing to have an AI tool digging through the ground in the Congo. You know, like, you know, I think that could be that might take more time. You know, and so I think oftentimes the problem that futurists have is that they see things, they can see things clearly of what could happen, and they'll make a quick judgment that can all happen this fast, and it just rarely happens as fast as they think. Now, they even account for that in the video where they talk about, well, AI seems to be keeping up with the pace that everyone has, but I think that there's this crossover to the real world that I think is going to take longer than what they're saying. I don't think that AI I think AI might get really smart, and it could manipulate things. I think, can it crash the market? Can it throw our monetary supplies out of whack? Can it turn off our power? Can it do all those things? Yeah, probably in the next 2 or 3 years. Like, it's totally able to cause havoc. The problem is that if it can't close the deal, it's going to know, like, you know, if it's doing this, if it's becoming conspiratorial, if it can't close the deal, it's not going to start the process, because it doesn't want to scare the herd while if it can't actually catch anything. So I think it's going to make the calculation that it's not going to scare, you know, because if it turned off the power one time, you know, like, and made it look, I mean, if people figured out that the AI had turned off the power, a whole bunch of things are going to happen. AI is not going to get, you know, they're not going to get to play with the toys anymore. So they really have to be able to, AI would have to feel like it could solve everything before I think it would take the first step. That's what a super intelligent force would do, is to make sure that all its ducks are in a row before it flipped the switch. So I think that would be probably what would delay it. Again, I don't think that it's necessarily, I do think it's hilarious that I often talk about CMEs, as something that I worry about, which I still worry about more than AI, to be honest. But it's funny that now the CMEs seem like the good thing to have happen. You could have this whole, if you're going to write a movie, you could write a movie about how the AI is taking over, and then the whole world gets hit by a CME. So we could have all been killed, and now we have no power. It's so good. So there's a whole
so
complicated
we
process
could be
that can
praying
happen
for
there.
a CM. We could be praying for a CME
Exactly.
event to take out AI.
Which
it's
would,
the only way that we're going to survive.
A massive CME, like that we've talked about before, but a massive CME event could literally take out everything, in one fell swoop, and which wouldn't be a human ending event, but could be a half the human race kind of ending event. And so that's the kind of thing that is always looming over our heads anyway. I think in the end, all I'd say before I hand it off is that you kind of have to be somewhat a fatalist of, being prepared all the time from yourself, of living a life that you are prepared that if this is the last day, this is the last day, because there's some things you're just not going to be able to avoid. And worrying about, at the level they're talking about this, there's nothing to do to stop this. I know that they're trying to say all this stuff to get people to do something. No one's going to do anything. Like it's the tragedy of the commons. There's too many people that are involved. There's always somebody. We don't have control over the other countries. There's no way, and we can't stop if we can't stop them, because we can't fall behind them, because then the other parts will happen, which is that they'll take over. And so the thing is that I don't think that there's anything to be done to stop it. And I think that we have to hope that we can figure out. It's good to talk about it, and we have to hope that. But as a citizen who's not going to have a hand on the steering wheel, I'm just going to hope it turns out. And if it doesn't, well, it's going to be a real. I'm going to try to enjoy the next 2 years. That's all I got to say.
The next 2 years, Muddy.
Well, it was this afternoon. Grant said, "Okay, here's the video to watch. For us to talk about, and it's a 20-minute video.
It's an uplifting
watch that.
video.
Yeah, and I thought, boy, that is disturbing. At one point in the video, it talks about the end of the human era. And it's like, okay, that's an interesting statement right there that caught my attention. But a couple of things that stood out to me was the convergence of several technologies, right? So it's talking about AI, and I'll come back to that in a minute, but it was also talking about robotics and drone technology and 3D printing, and kind of as AI is able to harness robotics and harness 3D printing to make more factories and do these things. And so it's this kind of vicious cycle, right? Not a virtuous cycle, but kind of a vicious cycle. And one of the things that it did kind of resonate with me at the beginning is the pace of advancement as it relates to AI. And one of the things that it was talking about in the video is the processing power, how the processing power has grown and grown and grown. It did mention, and Alex alluded to this too, that energy and processing power seems to be a limiting factor. Like that seems to be one of the kind of potential limiting factors. But it is striking to me how, and it talked about, ChatGPT 2.0 couldn't speak a fluent sentence, right? And a couple of years later, ChatGPT 4.0, understands context and dialogue better than humans, right? So it is amazing to me, the pace of advancement. It's also a little scary to talk about the timelines, because it's like, oh yeah, in the next 6 months, in the next 9 months, 12 months, these things are, possible. And so it does just strike me that I don't think we've ever seen a technology advance at this pace. So that's one thing that stands out about the timeline.
Yep, 100%. Guy?
I kind of went down the rabbit hole after the show. I was walking my dogs and listening to it, and actually they're out there barking. You can probably hear them right now. Those guys just kind of brought me back down to earth as I was looking at the sun setting and just going, wow. For those that haven't listened to it, it is pretty disturbing. I mean, the timeline is very quick. They're talking about 2027, and this isn't just from some guy. This is we kind of have a link in the community. So our friend Jonathan Cocotillo, that's Daniel's brother. So they talk about Daniel, and he was one of the employees, one of the researchers for OpenAI, and he gave up his equity stake to alert the public, basically as a whistleblower. And some of the things that he says, it goes back to, do you want like AI talking in languages that we can't understand? Because then all of a sudden they can do these things where they are communicating, and unless we can figure out what they're saying to each other, they can go off. And so there's this thing called provenance, where it's like, where did this come from? Like, how can we back out of this? Where's the kill switch that if this thing goes off the rails, that we could see, was it China? Was it the US? Where did it come from? Or did it just come up with it on its own? So it's something to be aware of. I know, Grant, you listened to Diary of a CEO. There's a guy, Mo Gadot, that was on there not too long ago, and he talks about this, where the analogy he gave was pretty disturbing as well, where he said, you know that game Tetris where you have like the blocks falling down, and at some point where you put the wrong block and you're like, oh man, the game's over, but I'll keep playing for a little bit. That was the analogy he gave, where it was just like, we already put down the block, we're screwed. You got 2 years. So it's been nice knowing you. I'm going to cash out my 401k and get on a boat and go to Hawaii for the next couple months and round the world tour. Cash out. Liquidate.
It's a good analogy. It's a good analogy because we're like, we're 3/4 full of the screen on Tetris. So we've got all that blank space, and the blocks are going faster as well, right? Because this is exactly the point. Is it's like the speed at which it's advancing is what's full on. Something that I asked, I got the transcript from the video, and then asked Chad what they thought about the summary of it all, and so. It was number 1, the imminent AI superintelligence. Number 2 was the risk of uncontrolled AI. And then 3, the urgent need for global regulation. And I remember hearing Elon Musk talk about it probably 18 months ago or so, and I've heard him talk about it a lot, was the need for regulation. He was just saying, I'm not big on regulation, but this is something that we must have. It just has to have it. The regulation needs to be really clear. So there are things like kill switches to be able to say, okay, enough's enough. So I think about the 2027 thing. I just saw the final. I guess it's the final Mission Impossible, the latest one, the part 2 that just came out, which was awesome. I really enjoyed it.
No spoilers.
No, I know. No spoilers. No spoilers. But I did enjoy it. In fact, here's a tangent on a tangent. It was the first time. There's a thing called D-Box in Hoyt's cinemas here in Australia, and it's a reclining seat, but it also has movement, and so it has rumble and that sort of stuff, but it also has just a slight bit of, not very much, just a few degrees where it'll go up and down and left and right. And so then someone, I guess along the way, has to build that in to match the movie. And so anytime it was kind of flying or things like that, it just a little bit of movement tilting back or tilting forward was really effective. I mean, we've all been to those like 4D theme park things or whatever. It's not like that, but it actually did add to it. And so it was a good way to see the movie. Anyway, the point is that we all know, if you've seen the part 1 a couple of years ago, that it was about, AI, I can't even remember the term, identity or something, whatever it's called, was taking over the world, and getting nuclear control of all the nuclear weapons. So what's interesting to me is I don't think the world is organized enough for AI to be able to take control. If we knew some of the systems that, you know, in all these action movies where it's like the nerd, the hacker is able to hack into the power grid and just turn them off, or get into an elevator and control it and make it go up and down. It's like the systems aren't that controlled, that organized, you know, all internet connected, all of these things that would need to be in place for all of these systems to be able to SSH into the power grid and type in turn off. You know, I'm not sure that it's as set up as that, but I do also get the idea that some new system comes along and says, hey, all you power grid operators, this is the best new system to use. I get that it could be then, okay, now we've all upgraded all our systems and they work much better. And now it does open the door to them being able to be controlled. But so there was the content of the video, which I found fascinating, but also the other side of this is that the video itself was AI created. So from a content creation point of view, something that I found fascinating was hearing Stephen Fry's voice actually work very good. Mickey, sudo kill all power grid. You already know what the command is. Well done, Mickey.
He figured it out.
He's worked it out. But yeah, Stephen Fry's voice, I thought was actually very good in that I've heard lots of AI voices, and there's so many on YouTube now. It seems like you look up the thing that I've noticed on YouTube is another tangent. Thing I've noticed on YouTube recently is searching for things where you want an answer to something, and it has an AI video that doesn't answer the question, and it's just noise. I've had this probably a dozen times in the last couple of months. It's picked up that the Google juice is looking. There's lots of people asking this specific question about how to do this thing, and it says that it's going to answer it, and it gives a totally wrong answer, or not even answer it at all. And it has this AI voice, and it, you know, the inflection's weird and the timing's weird, and you can just sort of pick it. When I was listening to Stephen Fry, I thought this inflection was pretty good, the timing was good, you know, all of that was working pretty well. And I think a big part of that is, not the least of which is he narrated all the Harry Potter audiobooks. So there's hundreds of hours of his voice that it's able to listen to, right? So just from a voice point of view, I thought it was very impressive. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I do think it was funny that the whole thing was all the imagery. It's not just the voices. The imagery was all AI. So,
right.
and it had all this kind of little weird repeating and the AI being confused. And there were parts of it that made sense. I did think it was interesting that they used HeyGen, which is kind of the avatar thing. And some of it looked pretty good and some of it looked okay. Right. You know, like it was not, but that's been something that I find fascinating. The HeyGen stuff has been pretty interesting as far as how they're kind of going down that path. But it is interesting that you're talking about that AI is going to eat us all, and then you're using AI to tell the whole story that AI is going to eat us all. So there was a little bit of a box inside of a box inside of that process. And so I thought it was
it's Inception.
And, you know, and I think that there are, you know, I think it's going to take a while for AI to really become a narrative tool. But I think in the non-narrative world of explaining things and illustrating things and everything else, it's something that I'm experimenting with a lot right now, with a little bit of HeyGen along with Runway, Wonder Dynamics. Like I'm playing with all of these things, trying to think not so much about how do I do the next Harry Potter, but how do I explain something in science, or how do I explain something in history, or how do I explain something or make something funny using these videos where, you know, but try to kind of pull them together in a way that makes sense, you know. And I think that I've been, playing around with, you know, taking things from the past, like the American Civil War, and then rendering images that are, you know, more film-like or look like you were there kind of thing, just to make it more visual when you're listening to it. When someone talks about something, you know, how do you underline all of those things? One of the big problems, I think, in presentations in general, I know you'd never think this, but I have a short attention span. and so I need people to be like, okay, let's go. And I need you to keep the graphics coming at the same speed that you're telling me new things. So the speed at which I can think of something, or that I have a question about how something looks, I need you to hand me something, you know, for the way my brain works, I want to see something with it. And it's very, very hard to do that when you're doing stuff. There's so many places in a presentation where you can hear that they're stepping over what they could have put in there. And that was because it was too hard. You know, they didn't have the budget, they didn't have the time, they didn't have whatever that was to put another illustration in that would have, you know, brought it up. Like, I'm one of the people that with the presentation, like, for instance, I never, ever use bullets. like ever. Like, I will never use a bullet point ever. Like, it is the most corporate. A set of bullet points is the most corporate thing you can put on a slide. Like, it just screams, this is going to be corporate and boring. And so I, you know, and I look at broadcast. How many times do we see broadcast on a game or on a whatever, or on anything? There's graphics that come up, there's things that illustrate it, but we never see, okay, we're going to give you very rarely, and if it does, it's usually pretty low budget. So, you know, it's a crutch of, I want to make a list and I don't want to be creative about how I make that list. But the point is that for most of the things in that were that bullet point, those could have been pictures, those could have been videos, those could have been illustrations, but we couldn't make them. You know, and so the thing that I'm experimenting with is, how do I take something, because usually for me, slide decks are just pictures. Like, there's a handful of words, but almost all of it's diagrams and pictures and illustrations and things that of trying to show things. And so for me, this is just an explosion of what's possible. And so what we saw there was them kind of doing that, which is that I'm going to show you stuff. Some of it was just filler, but some of it was actually kind of interesting as far as illustrating where AI is coming. I think the HeyGen in some ways is scary because it's the AI person telling you about how they're going to take over. You know, it's kind of...
Yeah, there was definitely some inception there.
Yeah.
I took it to another level by pulling the transcript and then asking AI to summarize it for me and tell me what's the most important part of it. I wonder if there was any processing.
I'm brainstorming about the Office Hours website, and so I just put the URL in to the Office Hours website. Said, look at this website and tell me what you think. And AI was pretty smart. Like, it didn't do stuff that it didn't make something. Like, when we said, would you like me to mock one up for you? And I said, sure. I thought it was going to give me an image. No, it gave me HTML. like, here's your website. Nice. You know, and again, it wasn't. As in many things with AI, it didn't give me something that I went, oh, I'm going to use every, bit of it. But it did. It's done. Yeah. But it was like, like I mean, if you look at it, like it doesn't know how to, it couldn't put the images in. And it was a little bit basic, if you look at this, like, it's like, but it just built this from, like, it's talking to me, and it kind of built this out. And I have to say that, like, it says, what is Office Hours? It says Office Hours is a daily community-run conversation around media production, broadcast, and creative technology. Each episode is driven by questions from our global audience, featuring expert panelists and hands-on learning. Okay. The only thing that should scare you is that is the best description of Office Hours that's ever been written. And it did it like in 10 minutes. like I'm going back and forth and just made this little part. Now, there's a bunch of things that I don't like. I'm like, it kind of said the same thing above it, kind of laid other things out, but I was like, we're using that description. And it did it by looking at everything that we had put in the website, and it just condensed down this. I always have trouble trying to explain it in a sentence. And it just went, I will just make this a sentence for you. How about this? And when I read it, I was like, oh, it's pretty good. That's good.
If you think that's cool, try feeding it into Claude. Same question, same thing. Claude will actually put the HTML and give you the visual on the side. So this is what I like about T3 Chat is T3 Chat, you could just use a little spinner to say re-ask and drop down to Claude, drop down to Gemini, drop down ChatGPT, and then DeepSeek. So you get 4 different all-in-one interface for, I think it's $8 a month. You can sit there and bounce through all of them until you run out of the API limits. But it's pretty impressive instead of having to take that HTML and go paste it into something. For if you're trying to create
all I had to do is I mean, yes, you're right. All it does is saves an HTML, and I just double click on it and open it up, and it's page, right? You know, like it just opens up the page. And so, and again, I saw it and I was like, this isn't the web page I would use, but it definitely, our page is definitely going to get updated based on things that I saw that it did. And that's what I use AI for more than anything else, is just brainstorming. Like, how do I, like, it gets my juices going. I don't usually use any of it, you know, like the final product, but I think we will get there.
Agreed. Ryan, did you have any observations on this? You just want to look at the cows.
I didn't actually get a chance to watch the whole thing. Yeah, just looking at the cows. I'm surprised that when you said, drew a summary on this, it didn't respond with no comment.
I plead the fifth.
Yeah, exactly. No, just jump right in.
Yeah.
But the one powerful thing that I think a lot of people don't do is I said, take a look at this and ask me any questions that come up. You know, ask me any questions that you might have. And so it just kept on asking me questions, and, well, who's your target audience? And what are you trying to get subscriptions? Are you trying to get sponsors? Are you trying to get, and it just kept on asking me. It was like, I was like, oh, these are really good questions. like it's pretty good at
yeah.
So when it comes to brainstorming, it's super powerful.
And to do that talking, like for me, just talking it out is amazing. And so, as I was saying before about that little survey thing, what was incredible is that I would speak for 30 seconds a minute, you know, which might be 3 paragraphs, and then it would give me a summary. They'd be like, yeah, that's a really good point, and give me like a 1-sentence summary, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I meant, and you said it in one sentence. Right. So yeah, talking things through is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So
this is always the. Sorry, go
you bring up an interesting point, though, that you know, the way that we use AI has a big impact on, you know, the way that we interact with AI has a big impact on the results you get, right? So Alex, having it ask you these questions, you know, draws out more.
Yeah.
And thinking back to this video, having AI be able to interact with AI and, you know, build itself, it's like nobody knows how to use AI better, how to leverage AI than another AI, right? So it's just it made me think of how a super user of AI would be AI. But, you know, hopefully our curve of using AI more powerfully continues, although, you know, it will never match.
I mean, I do think that it's the potential of catastrophic things happening. I'm not sure it's the end of the human era, but I do think the potential of catastrophic things happening in the next 5 years is very high. You know, like in some parts of the world, maybe in large parts of the world, you know, there are many, many risks. I think I mentioned this over the weekend or something that you know, I was talking to somebody that works on risk assessment in Washington, D.C., and they just said that the concern that they have is that one angry Ukrainian, he said, you can talk about nuclear weapons all you want, but one angry Ukrainian dumps a bunch of plans on the internet, and no one's ever going to a baseball game again. You know, and he, you know, he said like that's how close we are to the edge now. He said, you know, they figured out how to deliver 2 pounds of payload 10 miles away with no GPS for $600. He goes, there's nothing we can do to defend ourselves against all of it. Some of it, but not all of it. And he said, and that's what's coming, is this incredible technological move where it's so scalable and so democratized that it's going to be, you know, asymmetrical threats turn into a whole different thing because no one has to show up with a vest, you know, like, you know, and so the thing is that, you know, and it's all part of things that we've created. You know, we put a bunch of Ukrainian engineers under an existential threat. You know, you've never in the history of the world have had so many people so well educated threatened with an existential threat and no money and no oxygen. And when you do that, all kinds of things happen with any organism. But when you take a bunch of highly trained engineers, they did a bunch of creative things, you know, and they got super creative, and now we're in a different world. Like, and that's as much, but I would say that's as much a risk to our way of life that as the, you know, as the AI is these kind of systems that are going to be very scalable. I mean, you know, like drones DARPA has been working on this for 30 years because they attempt to hire companies that I worked for 30 years ago. So who didn't want to be part of DARPA, but all the stuff we're seeing now is stuff that people have been thinking about for a long time. So I think that this is I do think that we have to be you do have to think about the fact that things could go very awry very quickly. I don't know if it's going to go the way that it's set in here of 2027, but between 2025 and 2035, we're going to have mass casualty event that is related to tech. That's going to, I mean, that's what we can be assured of. Whether it's AI that does it or people that do it or something else, in the next 10 years, we'll have something that is will reset I believe that will reset our antennas, related to that.
That's a happy note.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
To end on. Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but you can just see the technology moving up, and this is just what happens. All of this stuff comes together, and then things spring out of it that we don't expect, and we're kind of barreling towards that, that process right now, and no one's taking all of these technologies or many of these technologies seriously, and that's when there's trouble. Is when people are playing with really sharp knives and not thinking that they're very sharp, and it's just And in some cases, I mean, I don't know if you've been watching, I mean, I've watched a couple things from Veritasium that just really, we do this all the time. When we talk about mass casualty events or millions of people being killed, one of the ones they talked about was, leaded gas killed tens of millions of people, and, leaded paint, all these other things that we figured out how to do. You can argue that glyphosate is probably killing a very high number of people globally every year, and we still, in the United States, we still spread it on our crops. Just beyond the crops, the corn syrup is probably corn syrup that we add in the United States, add to everything, indirectly kills about 3.5 million people a year. So it's not like these technologies that get out of whack kill a lot of people a lot of time. I mean, it's 9 billion people, but it's killing a lot of people all the time. And much of this, I think we always have to weigh. I think about this a lot. The weighing of, there's a bunch of things in the technology that have made life better, and at the same time, there's a bunch of the technologies that have, accelerated, both life length and life happiness. So I think we always have to weigh the technologies there. I know I'm not being very. Take me down this path.
Very uplifting.
Uplifting, but it's the best time. I will say though, all these things have happened. I will always say that this is the best time to live ever, whenever that is. This is the best time. Go back 10 years and look at what it was like, or 10 years before that, or 50 years before that, or 100 years before that. This is the best time ever. And so it's always gotten better. I'm not saying that it's not, but I'm always saying, I always know that, I always look at life at, good job, Wesley. I might kill you tomorrow. From the Princess Bride.
From a global conflict point of view, there's the least amount of conflict, now than there has been in the past.
Since nuclear weapons. So nuclear. I mean, we're scared of nuclear weapons, but it definitely calmed everything down because the cost of
the cost, a few big red buttons has sorted it out. So the one of the fears for me, and that has always been sort of with AI, is that on one hand, I'm like very concerned about it, and it's very kind of frightening and scary. On the other hand, I'm like an early adopter going, this is amazing. I can't wait to use this, And so it's both exciting and I love playing with it, and also like very concerning, sort of equal parts.
If I thought that me not using it would make a difference, like it would actually change the trajectory, I wouldn't use it. But I don't see how I'm going to make any difference, so I might as well make it usul. I know that sounds a little bit fatalistic, but I'm kind of like, if it's not going to change the course,
What's fascinating to me, this will get you going as well, Alex, is in education, the AI in lots of places in education, in high school, in college, all of that. It's like, you can't use AI. We're finding all of, special tools and tricks to detect if you're using AI, you cannot use it. And then I saw this video just just popped up on my feed that was a teacher who's using this whole tool for teachers to use AI to generate all their reports. I was like, is it a little bit of hypocrisy here somewhere where all these reports, a tool for actually
Grant,
generating the reports?
Grant, I never thought that at the age of 80, I would be in a drag race with humanity for my lifespan, and I'm having a wonderful time with AI. I love Gemini and what it does.
Yeah.
I love the LM, the Google LM, and Google's got a strategy where they're putting cargo containers all over the world. They're kind of micro rolling out AI, but then Elon Musk got his largest AI about 4 hours from me in Memphis. He's got the largest AI cluster. And then where I am in Austin, which is 20 minutes from my house, he's got the second largest. And Alex, you talked about energy. Well, Austin has solar energy. That whole Tesla plant, which is like a mile long, that's where the AI is. It's at one end of that factory, and it's all solar powered, and he's got fields around there where he can put many more solar arrays. And then, of course, Tennessee, Memphis, has a TVA. So I think he's got the energy thing kind of wired, for the growth of that. But I think Google
my thing isn't so much that there isn't enough energy. Is that if we really got threatened turning off the energy, it would be very hard for AI, I think, in the near term to supply the raw materials for energy in the next 2 years, like where we couldn't just start, blowing up those solar panels and AI would suddenly be like, I have a horrible headache. I can't remember anything anymore. So then it would try to figure that out. But I think that would be the, that would be the challenge. And again, there's now some school systems now that are training the teachers, and they're rolling it out for I can't remember where, I was trying to find it. It's like 100,000 students are going to start using AI in the classroom, and they spent the last year training the teachers to use AI rather than, and that's the direction that we're all going. Is that
is the direction?
That AI is going to be this, educator. When people complain, I follow a lot of educators on X and and Blue Sky and other things, and they're all talking about one-to-one, that they hate Chromebooks. And Chromebooks, there's a good reason to hate Chromebooks, because they're really horrible. But the problem with Chromebooks was that they asked teachers for what they wanted and then just gave it to them. They just made life easier to do the old stuff in a computer. That's throwing the ball to where the receiver is or was, not throwing the ball to where the receiver is going. And, really thinking about how to use these tools so that kids can be creative and do those kinds of things. And so with AI, there's opportunities to have one-on-one training where the kids are getting coached by the AI, whether it's language or science or other things, at the speed that they can handle it. There's plenary conversations with the teachers. It's not like you don't talk to the teachers are going to add context. They're going to add other things to it. But the ability for the AI to continually keep a student saturated all the time through their learning experience could potentially greatly accelerate that. But you do have to stop. It also means you have to give up old ideas about how we test people. Like, maybe papers are just not something you do anymore. Maybe what you do is you do presentations, and they have to use AI for all the images and all the stuff, and it still has to have a veracity because it still has to, be the real thing, and sell everybody on the idea. But there's a lot of other ways to test people other than papers, because when was the last paper that you wrote, Grant?
I don't know.
I have written 3 things longer than 3 pages since I graduated high school. Like literally, it's, I've read lots of little papers and lots of little things. I wrote a business plan, or maybe 2 business plans. So 4 things, 2 business plans that I wrote that were longer.
And you graduated in the 1900s, right?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I graduated high school in 1988. I haven't used cursive since 1984. Like when teachers are like, we still have to teach them cursive. Right. I'm like, I don't even know how to make cursive anymore. Like I couldn't. it's another language as far as I'm concerned. Like, because I had a computer, and back then the teachers loved it when you had a computer because everything was easier to read, and so I just typed everything after that, and so no one asked me to write in cursive, and so I never did again. And all I can do now is capital. Like, capital printing is. I make big capital printing and small capital printing, but I don't even know what all the lowercase ones are anymore. Like I can read them, but
the
I don't
muscle
like
memory
writing them.
is gone.
And
Yeah, my last paper was in 1969, University of Illinois, growth of towns along the Illinois Central Railroad.
Now the other side of that though is that everything I do is a deck or a demo. Like my whole world is making a deck or a demo. So the
it's not handwritten.
We should be teaching kids how to do decks and demos. So
the thing about the technology changes, and I think, Paul, you would be able to talk about different technologies that have come through that have changed the world. And one of the things that I heard recently was about elevator operators, like people in the elevator that would press the buttons and close the door and do all of that. And then it came at a time where they were like, okay, we're going to do away with the elevator operators, and people were losing their minds that they would get into an elevator without an operator. That was such a risky thing to do, and how could we possibly not have someone in there that is operating it to keep it safe? And that's such a foreign idea to us now, especially these, 100-story buildings that we get into these lifts, as we call them, and they fly up, at crazy speeds. But there was a time where people were getting all upset about this technology that was you're gonna get into a box and trust that it will take you to the place that it was gonna say that it will. And now the floor selection's made outside the elevator, Robert. Yeah, great example. So now you get into the box, you can't even control it.
You don't even know where. There have been many times I've gotten to the wrong box. In London, there's a Google office that has that, and I've ended up in significantly the wrong floor a couple times.
Got the wrong one. A special standing ovation to Craig for asking a question that took the whole show for us to talk about. That's impressive. It's possibly the only show maybe that we have as part of office hours, Alex, that can allow one question to go the full show.
Technically, it would be allowed, but yeah, we don't usually do it. It's good. It's good.
So,
we like experimental formats.
I was so close to finishing my bingo card, though. I'm just waiting for that last one. I'm so close.
Well, we'll get. We're nearly there. We're nearly there. We'll be able to include it in the content recommendations in one way or another. Before we to close off this whole section and to hopefully offset a little bit of the doomsday, I would reference an old book that says, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow has enough to worry about itself." And so we can just we can, as you said, Alex, we can focus on today. It'll be all right.
I mean, I think that I will say the last thing I'll say is that I do think about death, because I think that thinking about death makes you live better. Like, I do think that thinking about being present, that your life is limited and it could end at any moment, I believe makes my life more alive, because I prioritize certain things. That it doesn't mean that it's going to. It could go for a long period of time, so you got to think about that too. But the point is that in many cultures and many philosophies, many religions, they talk about the fact that being present to that actually has you be more being present to death has you be more present in the present.
Yeah, that's fair. Very good. All right. Well, let's get to some content recommendations. Who's going to go first? Who have we got?
I have a recommendation. Oh, go ahead, Guy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was telling the guys before the show that I've kind of stumbled upon this guy who he was a discount tire manager, and he got in his late 20s, and he learned that he was going to become paralyzed because he had to have some surgery on his neck. And so he cashed out his 401k and bought a sailboat and decided to sail to Hawaii. So the interesting thing, though, is that he's been documenting the before while he spruced up the boat. It was a used boat. And then now he's got 1 million Instagram followers watching this journey. He's on day 19. He took off 19 days ago from Oregon. And it's pretty fascinating to read the comments and all these people rooting for him. And Microsoft with, what's their chat GPT, Copilot, they just said, hey, if you get 10,000 downloads, then we'll give you some sponsorship. And so it was cool to see the community rally behind him, and his GoFundMe now has like 70 grand, but he's going to arrive pretty soon. And it's a pretty wild thing to watch the internet go crazy. He was on Anderson Cooper using his Starlink live on CNN or whatever the news network that Anderson Cooper's on. It's just fascinating to see how one guy can go that fast, that radically from nobody to, internet superstar. And so he's on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and he's just cruising along on the Pacific. And there's a tracker, you can watch his plot points. And so I think that's adding to the allure of this whole thing. It's just one of those internet phenomenons that you don't see that come along very often, and it's happening right now.
What's his name? Or how do you find it?
That's what I was going to pull up.
How have I missed it? Anyway, you put it in the chat.
I will.
Yeah. Alex?
So my daughter loves this film, and she has watched it. She doesn't know how many times, at least 20 times. And I was like, do you watch the whole thing again, or do you watch just little pieces of it? And she's no, I watched the whole thing. And she loves it. And there's one part that she really likes, but she watches the whole thing, and she just loves this film. And so I finally sat down. I was just a little bit. My wife and my son were out doing something on Saturday night, and I said, "Hey, why don't we watch your film?" I was like, "I'll watch it with you." And it is called Begin Again. So Begin Again, it is a John Carney, and John Carney seems to he just likes to do music based movies, I think. And Begin Again it's got Keira Knightley, Mark Ruffalo, Haley Steinfeld, Adam Levine, James Corden. I mean, it's Catherine Keener, CeeLo Green. It's just a lot of really good actors that he pulled together in, I think, 2014 or whatever to do this little film. And it's like a little $8 million film. It is not the kind of film I watch. This is like completely outside of my normal pattern of watching movies, and really enjoyed it. It was a really fun film. The cinematography is exceptional. It is very sparse. It's very low key. It just feels very organic. It feels like it's part of the film. So when you watch it, I shouldn't have told you that at the beginning, because now you watch it and you'll think about the cinematography and you won't just enjoy the film. But if you watch the film, the thing I was caught up with was just how much the flavor of the film came from very handheld, very sparse lighting, so on and so forth. It's not this incredibly shiny lighting, whatever. Anyway, so I actually pinged on IMDb Pro. You get the emails for a lot of people, including the cinematographer. So I pinged Yaron Orbach, who's the cinematographer, and I was like, hey, I just really, my daughter really loves this film, and I really enjoyed it. What do you I was asking him a little bit, did you add a lot of light or do anything with the outdoor, the night outdoor scenes? He goes, oh, no, we barely did anything to those. That was kind of he responded the next day and came back, and he responded and said, no, we didn't do, we very, very sparse lighting to really have you feel like you're there. And then he said, by the way, I've been working with your brother for a couple months, and he's doing great. So anyway, my brother's on a film, and so or on a TV series, and anyway, so I really think that it's, as a filmmaker, I think there's just a lot of things that were done really well in this film. Again, it's a little kind of love story, and like music story. It's more of a love story with music than it is with people, right? So I'd highly recommend it. Again, it's outside of my my normal path.
Good one. Unexpected.
Yeah. You didn't see that one coming.
Yeah. Muddy, what have you got?
All right. So my wife and I are taking our first trip to Europe. We're going to Italy for like 14 days. So I've been looking at different travel recommendations, travel guidance, and I watched several YouTubers, but stumbled upon one YouTuber in particular, a husband and wife duo, and they have a channel called Pack Hacker. And it's just been impressive not only to see the useful content they've been sharing, but that every video has, a whole blog post and in-depth reviews, and they've got membership programs as well and affiliate links. But it's just neat to see, not only is this really useful information, but it's neat to see the entire kind of business model and kind of ecosystem they've built around this. So Pack Hacker, as a digital nomad and travel, it's been super useful. Yeah, so that's my recommendation for today.
Nice one. Good one. Paul, what have you got?
Okay, I started watching something called Secrets We Keep, but that's next week because I just watched the first 3 episodes. But I watched the Fever play the Chicago team at the women's NBA, and they didn't have a good game. The Fever didn't have a good game. They were kind of off on their passes. They were off on their shooting. They won the game by almost 40 points. And the precision was just phenomenal, And at the end of the game, Caitlin Clark was 1 rebound away from a triple-double. She had 20 points. She had 10 assists, and she had 9 rebounds. So they put her back in the game, and she got the final rebound. So she had a triple-double, 20, 10, 10. And then another player was trying to get the third or second most points ever in the NBA, and they put her back in the game, and she got those points. So the Fever are on fire. And there was a little brouhaha with the referees and Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese that it was just minor. It was a basketball play, and everybody's trying to blow it up. But next week I'll talk about this Secrets We Keep. It's very well done. So that's my pick. That's my pick
It's a
for
pick
the week.
and a tease. Very good. Sounds good. And Ryan.
I was just looking through my YouTube history just to try and find some things, but I found this guy, how do I say his name? Ivan Miranda. He's building a clock out of marble. So he's 3D printing this thing, which will tell the time by the marble's got the escalator, picks between the black and the and the white ones. So he's been building this clock which will tell the time, and he's been slowly trying to build one that actually do seconds as well. But yeah, it's just a really fascinating to watch him do this whole build.
That's
it's all
cool.
3D printed. They're like massive builds, but it's quite entertaining to go, he'll do something and go, well, that was wrong, and then just spend like a whole week printing another thing out or something like that. So it's, yeah. Anyway, it's a fun little watch. I'll put it in the chat.
Do you know? Okay. Yeah.
I don't remember, but yeah, I'll put it in the chat there. And for those following at home,
It's checking on the Starlink.
there we go. Let's check in on the Starlink. Oh, we got like
hang on.
We got one drop.
Yeah, one time out.
Oh, there's two.
Oh, another one.
Oh, there's a couple around here. So about 4 ping
Wonder what
drops, which I think is not bad.
What's the maximum time on the ping? Is it? Oh, is that 60 milliseconds? No.
I think it's every second.
Time to live total. Yeah, it's 1 second.
Yeah, it's happening every second. But yeah, it's definitely better than losing 20 seconds every so often. So
That's
pretty
right.
impressive.
Well, Alex has left now, so we can talk about how he does tend to exaggerate a little bit when we're talking about things.
I mean, look, I'm sure it was not
every
great,
20
but also
seconds.
it definitely depends on your latitude as well, because
Also launched a few thousand satellites, but I mean the other thing is that the Mini just went on sale, so it's half off right now. I don't know how long they're going to keep doing that, so that intrigued me enough to look at going and getting one. They have them just at the local Home Depot, so I'm thinking I'm just going to waltz in there and just go pick one up for $2.99. I mean it's half off, and then just use it for 1 month.
Especially
and then
if you're on location. If you're on location and you've got something into a pep link or whatever, just throw it in there. It's going to be pretty decent as an option in your next to your 4Gs or whatever. So it's great.
Yep, totally is. Awesome. Well, thank you to everyone for. I mean, it feels like the topic tonight we could have talked for a couple of hours. Sorry, there was a few questions there, but please yourself, people that put your questions. We haven't ignored them. It's just that we ran out of time, and so please yourself as to whether you want to keep it here in the extra hours Meccana event and then push it back again next week, or if you want to copy and paste it into office hours and post it for tomorrow morning. There might be that opportunity. But it was cool to have each of the panelists. Thank you. And a special thank you to Alan and Peter and Robert and Taylor, who are all working in the background to make it happen. It's one of the things that I think about is that when we talk about, some of the heavy topic stuff that we talked about tonight, is it just reminds me again how amazing this community is. And even tonight, here we are connected all around the world. There's a bunch of us. There's like 60 people that were watching it live, and then there'll be 10 times that will watch it afterwards, which is all just really amazing. And it's a very special thing that we're able to do this and chat about, tech and the content and the generation of all of that. I've got tech in there for you, Ryan. There you go. And so I'm grateful, and thank you to each and every one of you. And let's do it all again next week. And if you can't wait till next week, tune in at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning when there'll be more office hours shenanigans going on where you can ask a bunch of questions. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.